Every company has workflows, but what if these workflows could think, flag issues, and help humans make better decisions? In this episode of AI Explainer series, we're diving into the world of agentic workflows. Hi, my name is Meena Ganesh, Senior Product Marketing Manager for AI at Box, and I'm here with our CTO, Ben Kuss. And Ben, let's get right into it. Now, we talk often about agentic workflows. Let's start with the basics. What is a workflow?
Yeah, so I think, like you said, every company has something that they call workflows, which is, I think, and the general definition would be a sequence of steps that you would do to achieve something. And many times, you'll see that many enterprise tools, enterprise platforms have built into them some aspect of workflow. You can go buy workflow tools today, and their job will be to execute a series of steps, right? So you might have things like, I want a review process or a signature process, or I have an onboarding process. There's so many things, like maybe like every company, every line of business, every division, every industry has a series of these workflows. This is just built into like everything that we do in our natural lives in enterprise.
Okay, great. So it sounds like these workflows, business processes have been, quite established with companies that have been along for a long time. Why is this something that's coming up now? What are some of the challenges associated with them?
Yeah, so I think that one of the exciting things that a lot of people are talking about now going forward is the idea of using AI, and specifically AI agents, inside of these workflows. Because if you think about it, like many different steps that you'd put into these workflows historically were these deterministic sort of automatable steps that naturally were things like, to make a decision, to like a conditional branch. Have you ever heard of like if this then that kind of style, or splitting based on some sort of
decision tree?
Yeah. And so in the history of all of these workflows across all these platforms, you've always had this challenge, which is that sometimes you need to apply intelligence in these workflows. In fact, many of them are kind of oriented around this idea of bringing intelligence in. But this was a manual step. It typically required a person who was part of the workflow to then go in and execute that step to move it forward.
But when you say intelligence, let's break that down a little bit. What do we mean? Because oftentimes if it's, just like an approval step, it's just someone needs to approve something, right?
So the historical workflows often had something like, if this, let's say that you're approving a contract, and if it goes over this amount or has this kind of criteria associated with it, then, change different people.
Yeah.
But imagine that you actually wanted to do something where you wanted more like specific intelligence that was usually something that historically only a person could do. Like in our world at Box, we deal with unstructured data. And typically any time that you have something that you would call unstructured data, like a data sheet, a presentation, a contract, a plan, a proposal, like all of these kind of things, you often needed to have a person sit down to understand it, to read it. This is the nature of unstructured data. They're very human-oriented. So now with generative AI, we have the ability to have agents participate in workflows and to do some of these steps that used to pause and wait for somebody to get around to doing them.
So give me an example of a traditional workflow versus now where an agent is in that workflow. Yeah. What are maybe some steps that, one would then delegate maybe to an AI agent?
Yeah. So you're in product marketing.
Yes.
Okay. So one of the things that you often need to do is to review material that is ready to go out to the world. Data sheets, product material, and so on, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And, when you're doing this, you often are thinking through a series of steps that you might want to accomplish. So let's just ignore AI for a second. I'll give you whatever workflow tools that ever you want. Like, how would you possibly have automated this a couple of years ago?
I don't know if I could have automated it, because just thinking out loud, some of the steps that I'd have to go through, no matter what I'm reviewing or iterating on, I'd have to make sure that it aligns with our messaging, positioning, brand guidelines. I'd have to look at past materials or any new, discussions that we may have had, conversations, and iterate based on that. So it's less leveraging a specific tool to do it and more using my own business context that I might have and understanding in order to do, my step in this workflow.
Totally agree. And it takes a fair amount of intelligence and background and knowledge of this process to be able for you to do that intelligently. And similarly, if there was, this is similar to these review steps. So like there's like a legal review where you have a lawyer analyzing something. There's steps associated with making sure something is ready for to move from one an internal draft that you need somebody to review to make sure it's a final draft and a proposal. And it's just many of these normal processes that you review things. But oftentimes you have a series of steps that you know that you're double checking, like the ones you just mentioned, which are part of this process. So imagine now that instead of you having to sit down every time to review this, imagine if you had something, in this case an AI agent, who would review all of the basics so that it could very quickly prompt you with the outcome of that. So meaning that it would say, instead of like, here's a bunch of material for you to review, instead say, hey, go through a process, have an AI agent review it according to the rules that you've specified. And it would say, this needs more work in this area, or this didn't pass this check that you had. And then you could then automate the process by which it was able to then traverse through this more intelligent workflow.
So AI in this case would help alleviate, rather, not necessarily maybe fully eliminate, but alleviate the manual part of my workflow, which is in any way I would have to kind of carve out a few hours, sometimes even days, depending on the content that we're working on. If it's, for example, a major event like BoxWorks, there's a lot more thought, that goes into it. But it would alleviate the manual part of it, which is reviewing, flagging anything, or at least calling out like, hey, actually prioritize your attention to these parts.
Yes. And to your point you're making, like, imagine if you had a bunch of these things to do. Like, and then naturally it takes you time to even review them, to even know, like, you wouldn't even know what to focus on until you had a chance to review them all. And sometimes that process by itself can take a lot of time. And so this review process that we're talking about is just one of many examples of when you have a defined workflow in an organization that you could have AI agents assist in. And many times they're actually, when we talk to customers who are excited about this, it's more about having the AI agent call out the things more quickly that their people should be focused on. And this is something where in many cases, like we would talk to a lot of companies who say, I actually don't do some of these things. I don't have a process because it's too expensive for my people to do that. Either they don't want to, they don't have time to, they don't have the resources in some way. So being able to sort of start to automate some of these processes with these agents who then can do some of the work, especially the when you can document well what the instructions are for these agents to do this, then you could then turn around and start to have a more, not only more efficient process, but often a faster process, so that you could then get your work done faster, in addition to having better service for your clients, better service for your customers, better service for your internal employees, and so on.
One of the things that you mentioned earlier as, a challenge that has not been possible to do before is leveraging content, or at least intelligence that exists, rich context in content, most of it which is unstructured, in workflows. How do AI agents, kind of open up that world now and make that possible?
So I was talking to one of our customers recently, and when their legal team had a challenge in that they had this very long backlog of things that people wanted them to review. And so one of the things that the legal team said is, like, they don't need to review all this stuff because most of it in this particular example was kind of like boilerplate. But sometimes there was something that they needed to spend a lot of time on. But they really struggled to get through the point to which they could then find the things that they needed to review, the things that were the riskiest. And so they implemented a workflow where they basically had an AI agent that, so when people said, I want to have this, review this, it first went to an AI agent who would review a series of standard steps. Things like, are the certain types of clauses, are they standard? Do they meet the like something like an NDA? Does it have the right type of termination period? Does it have the right clause, and so on? And only when something was out of the ordinary, that then the AI agent would flag it as risky, and then the legal team would be able to review that with priority because that was something that was more important. And so that one step where you basically had like a pre-filter associated with this work saved them not only tons of time themselves, and work that they were very happy to have not have to review a bunch of boilerplate contracts, but then also meant that somebody who needed something reviewed, it immediately was clear what was the thing that was a priority. Similarly, we had a customer who had a loan origination process. And one of the things that took longest in this process was actually to review and to double check all of the material the person sent. Like things like in certain like loan things, you have to like give certain material, proving who you are, proving where you live, proving some aspects of like your what went into the loan, and that required a bunch of specific manual work to go through and check these different aspects. In that workflow, you could have an agent start to review those things to then bring together and flag anything that seemed off, so the loan originator could then review that process and be able to say, this is the area where I need to focus my time, or they can just verify and approve the process.
So in this case, the agent can not only review, has the right documentation been submitted, but even is the documentation itself complete? Does it meet all the requirements? Does it have all the information that we need? So we're really converting what this unstructured content is into rich context that then we can plug into workflows and make them a lot more actionable for the folks who are using these workflows.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So Ben, we're talking about, almost delegating these tasks now to AI agents. How far do we go? I mean, how much power can we give to these AI agents? Are there any concerns that come to mind when, moving to agentic workflows for you?
Yeah, I think there's definitely concerns and something that everybody wants to take seriously when they go to implement these kind of things. So if you're going to go down the path of using AI agents in a workflow, one of the first things to do is to make sure you've properly given it the instructions to handle the tasks that you want to give it. And so many times you can actually check this ahead of time, like where you have just the isolated step that you test with AI. In something like Box, you'd be able to give it the example documents that you have, ask the questions, extract the data from it, and whatever you wanted that step to do. And so testing these out ahead of time so that you know it's giving you the kind of answers that you want. Very similar to if you had a person doing it, where you first kind of give them some examples. Kind of this idea of giving them this like an eval set of questions ahead of time to make sure they're answering the ways that you want. And that's critical. In addition to the best practice that most companies will tell you is that you shouldn't have AI agents make very critical decisions yet. In many cases, that what they should do is to prepare data and to prepare the information to make it easier for the human to then review them, because you don't want to get in a spot where the AI agent either was tricked and or was made a mistake, and then that causes severe repercussion. And so the standard guidance would be to have agents participate in workflows, but still be them under human supervision, who is then responsible for the outcome.
Okay, so ensure that there is sufficient guardrails for agents in the form of these instructions, like what it should do and what it absolutely should not do, and ensure that these steps that the agents then are incorporated in or do participate in, they always have that human in the loop to actually make the decision. When we talk about a decision tree, if then, they make the decision on which path to take, but the information is prepared in a much better manner so that it's a lot easier on the human and kind of alleviates that manual drudge work step.
And of course, you want to have platforms that are secure, that explain the reasoning, so that you can always double check and to make sure that it's auditable what the agents are doing, and to make sure that that's documented and logged appropriately.
Great. So Ben, for our viewers tuning in today, watching this episode now and thinking about the possibilities for agentic workflows, what are some best practices or tips you could share with them on, when they go back to their business, how to identify workflows that might be best suited for agents?
Yeah. So some of the things that some of the best practices we've heard from customers who've been able to get this started, they were able to take a known and repeatable process that they had internally. Oftentimes something starting simple is often a good idea. And then have an AI agent be able to participate in a well-defined, simple workflow, get used to it, understand how it works under human supervision, and then be able to then add steps over time so that you can sort of build on your success and then get used to more and more complex workflows.
Great, Ben. So for our viewers tuning in today, what is the TLDR on agentic workflows?
I'd say this is a major new area of innovation, a new area where AI agents are beginning to have more of an impact on enterprises, something to look into all of your platforms to see how they can then be able to apply not just workflows like you've always had, but intelligent workflows to help you do more with with AI agents.
Awesome insights. Yeah, and we're just scratching the surface with agentic workflows. So drop a comment and tell us how your team is thinking of incorporating agents into your workflows. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss another episode. We'll see you next time.